Hi guys, this is Sai Kumar Kurtiwada. In this video, we will learn about text area and select attributes in our HTML. So let me talk about this text area first. Let me quickly jump into Visual Studio Code. So what is the text area? Whenever you want to give some set of data or the content which will be having a multiple lines and you want to see 2 or more lines easily on the field, then you can use a text area. So let me create a text area and save this. Now go here and reload. You can give a placeholder for this text area. Let me give a placeholder as address. So let me give address as a placeholder and save this. Go here and just reload. Now you can see the placeholder, and by default whenever you give a text area it will create 2 rows and 20 columns by default. And whenever you type or whenever you reaches that maximum size of the text field or a text area, it will go to the next line. Let me go here. Let me type something and give something. So it went to next line and next line and next line. So you are seeing this scroll. So by default you have 2 rows. If you want to increment that rows, there is a property called as rows, and you can give number of rows. For example, if I give 5 rows, it will increase to 5 rows. 1, 2, you can see 2, 3, 4, 5. So these are the 5 rows, and you can type any of this 1, 2, 3, 4, type, and by default the visible content is 5 rows, and later from 6th row it will just scroll down. So how much it will scroll means whatever you are trying to type, it will scroll completely. So that's about your rows property of the text area. Let me go with calls. Calls is nothing but columns. So let me go here and just give 5 columns. By default I said 20. So now if you give the 5 columns, the width of the text area will decrease. You can see there is a decrease in the text area. If you want to increase more than 20, let me give 30, it will increase the width of that particular text area. So it increased 10 characters more. So you can enter around 30 columns division, and you can enter any value inside this text area. So that's about your text area and the properties which are used for text area, that is rows and columns. So let me go with one more thing like select tag. So we have a select tag, and for showing the select tag it is like an option selection. So let me go with Angular and copy this and put it over here, and then it is something like React, and this is something like Java, and let me copy this, put it over here, and let me make it as C#. Save this. Now you can have different properties in this particular select options. First, let me reload this. You can see a select option with all this value. Now, if you want to have a default value, let me go here and add a default option with an empty, which will be selected by default. Let me reload. Now you can see there is a selection. Now, whenever you want to give some set of options for this, let me put all this inside the form and copy this, put it over here. So now what I want to do is I want to give a name for this text area. Name is equal to address, and let me give a name for this select, because we kept the form tag, and the form contains select where the select is equal to lang. Let me save this. Now let me add a br tag and create a button which is like type submit, and let me go with a value like submit. You can either use input type button or directly a button. Button is something like a semantic element which indicates a particular element. So let me go here. We'll talk more about semantic tags in the future. Now let me add an action for this with /index2.html. Let me save this. Whenever you submit this, it will go along with this name and its value. Let me go here, reload. Let me type something over here, and let me select Angular and click on submit. So if you see, there is a 2 values, that is address and lang. Lang is the name which I gave, and the value is Angular. So what this value is going is whatever the value you are displaying on the UI. But in some cases, the UI displaying will be different from the values which we are sending to the backend. Example, I want to add a ng whenever I select Angular. Whenever I select React, it should be small letter React. Whenever I select Java, it should be small letter Java. Whenever I select C#, it should be sent as a C# in a spelling manner. So how we can do that? We can do that by using a property called as value. So let me go here, let me add a value for this where the value is ng. So whenever you give the value, then it will be picking from this value. If you don't give the value, it will pick from the UI displayed value. So let me go here and go here, and this is something like React in a small letters, and let me go with Java with a small letters, and let me go with C-sharp. This is my value and save this. Go here and reload. Let me go back and reload. So now let me give some address and let me select Angular and let me submit this. Now you can see lang it went with ng. That means the value whatever we gave, it went with that particular value. So whenever you don't want to send your value same as the value which you have displayed, then you can use value property on the option so that you can send that value whenever you want and however you want. So let me go here. There is one more property called as multiple, which is a Boolean type of attribute. Whenever you give this multiple, you can select multiple options in that particular select. So let me go here and just go back, reload. Now you can see these values and you can select any of this value by clicking on the control and clicking on the mouse. Let me click this Angular, let me click this Java. So I have selected these two values. Let me submit this. If you submit this, there are two properties which went, lang with ng and the lang with Java. So that means it has two values which has been selected. That's why this ng or the lang property is going two times. Whenever you want to select multiple values, then you can use multiple property on this particular select element. And there is something called as by default selection. Whenever you want to select by default some value, for example, I want to select React as default. So then in that case, I can add selected property which will be selected by default. Let me reload and React is selected by default. Whenever you apply this selected property on an option, that value will be selected by default. So that's about your selected attribute. And there is something called as grouping of these options. If you want to group some set of options, you can group them by using opt group, that is option group. Let me group this as front end and let me group this as backend. So in this case, we will be using one property called as label to label that groups. Let me go here and reload, and these are something like groups. So let me remove this multiple so that you will understand in an easy manner. Let me reload, and you can see here there is an empty and there is an empty. This has been becoming a separate group and this became a separate group. So what I can do is I can name that groups. For example, this is a front-end group, this is a back-end group. I can name that by using a property on this opt group, that is nothing but label. Label as front end, and let me copy this label and put it over here and let me make it as backend, so that by using this label attribute we can label that particular group. So let me go here, reload and click this. You can see front end and a backend, but you cannot select them. Just for visualization and just for understanding purpose, we are using this label property which will help us to define what type of group is that particular options. So that's about your select and text area and how they behave whenever you are using a multiple attribute, as well as whenever we are using an option group. And along with that, we discussed about option value, option selected, option group label. So that's about your select and text area. Hope you like my explanation. If you like my video, like, share, subscribe to my channel for more updates. Signing off. Thank you.